Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Dirty Martini. I hope you're doing well and I hope you're having an amazing day. I am so happy to be recording this episode because with this episode, I am finally marking the end of exams. And as per the tradition, I need to rant about this for a second. Even though the exams just started, all the deadlines I had and all the exams I had were cramped in a single week, and now all my deadlines have passed, at least for now, and it was very overwhelming, as you can imagine, and I'm happy that everything is done. They went. Sometimes I didn't walk with them, but they went, and for the time being, at least, that is done. And I have to be honest, I did hate every single second of the past week with all the deadlines, especially the group work, which was finished barely an hour before the deadline. I was homicidal. But now it is paying off because the second semester doesn't start until February. And what this means is that I have roughly 2 weeks of just chilling. I mean, now my focus is just fully shifting to solely working. And I will be working as much as I can because now I do not have to do both university and work simultaneously. And I have a hot take. And I am fully giving you the permission to disagree with me and tell me to go sit in a corner. Perhaps even years from now, I will disagree with myself. And I want to say that this hot take is not sponsored by Karl Marx, but it is just the conclusion I have come to following the couple of years I have had now. What I want to say from my current viewpoint, which again is the result of my immediate environment and circumstances, I don't think that having a 9 to 5 is as bad as people portray it to be. Now, hear me out. Of course, I know that the grass is always greener on the other side, but please hear me out. So what I mean is that compared to my current lifestyle, a 9 to 5 sounds less demanding and it is definitely less workload. That is for certain. Now, here's the thing. I am not saying that it is easy in any capacity. I recognize that people get overwhelmed by their 9 to 5 a lot. And I can imagine that this routine from 9 to 5 every single day for more than 40 years can get exhausting at the least. And it can become mundane and can become a burden. There is no denying it. If you feel like this is what your life is all about, and if you feel like you're in a stagnant position, I can imagine how that can be seen as something exhausting. But personally, compared to my personal current state, the way I see it, I will get my weekends, I will get my evenings, I will get an actual income that I can pay my bills with, and while there is perhaps more responsibility, this can be compartmentalized from your life in the sense that the second you clock off, you can clock off mentally as well. At least that's how I imagine it's going to be like. Because currently, I am not doing a 9 to 5. I am doing a 24/7 with a single day off every 2.5 months. And let me tell you, that is, to put it simply, overwhelming. For me personally, considering what my goals and aspirations are, this lifestyle that I currently have is not a sustainable lifestyle in the long term, and its consequences have been catching up with me for quite some time now. But currently, how I see it, just having to work instead of having to work and study at the same time seems like it's at least half the workload. Sure, a 9 to 5 will come with its own problems. There's no denying it. Again, I can imagine how a 9 to 5 can become a crushing weight that just makes you suicidal, but also look at it from my point of view that this is literally half of what I have to usually do. And now, getting nearly 2 weeks to focus on just one thing, even though I will be working quite a bit, seems like a good old rest that I have been looking forward to. And it just again is a very evident reminder of how thinly I usually spread myself. And now, even if it's just for a blip of time, not having to do that and be everywhere all at once, it is just a relief. And the fact that I would get a bit of money to buy an Albert Heijn mayonnaise rather than an Aldi one, that's just a little nice bonus. An Albert Heijn bonus, if you so will, although their bonuses have been coming with hepatitis A because they found that Albert Heijn sold frozen blueberries with hepatitis A, infected with hepatitis A. And I'm like, girl, what? Like, huh? And I kid you not, that day I went to buy blueberries. And thank God I decided to buy fresh ones, and I bought them from the market and not the Albert Heijn that is next to the market, because that could have gone bad really, really fast. But anyways, I don't know if this is the result of me being overworked for the past decade and a half, to be honest, or just a very successful manipulation tactic presented by yours truly, capitalism. But honestly, a 9 to 5 doesn't sound that bad. Another hot take that is related to this hot take. I don't know if you have experienced this, but I have, and it is normally older people who grew up in a very different economic climate. So what I'm talking about, and it makes my blood boil like nothing else. So when I say that I am overwhelmed with studying and I just want to graduate to just focus on one thing at a time as much as I can, because like I will never have just one thing at a time in my life. I will always have many things going on, but like, you know what I mean? Like at least eliminate, so to call it, one big chunk of where my attention, time, and energy is going. And then when I say this, and I am met with the response of, make your student years as long as you can. Don't rush. Those are your best years. Oh my God. I just, don't tell me that those are my best years. Because if those are my best years, then what is the point of living after they end? And also, if this is the best, what should I be expecting for of the future? Like, if this is the best, I might as well off myself. I'm sorry. And now little Mr. whatever. I don't know what you did in your student years, but I can confidently say that you apparently didn't have to worry about finances. And I'm sorry that I'm putting finances on such a pedestal, because we all know money doesn't buy happiness and it doesn't buy health. There's no denying it. But the lack of money is an all-consuming stress factor which can have an effect on your health and happiness. And money is such a taboo topic and nobody talks about it with honesty. And I'm here to change that within my little circle here, because it's such a taboo topic. It's like you never talk about money. Money should be talked about. Money is such an important factor in our lives. And like, I hate to admit it, but like, money is important. And I'm not implying that money is everything, but it is definitely better when you have it. And I'm not talking about being a gazillionaire. I'm talking about being financially stable and not having to worry if your next paycheck will be enough to cover the basic necessities. Call me materialistic, I don't care. You just cannot convince me that money doesn't matter and that money shouldn't be talked about, because it does. Money matters. It may not buy you things to satiate your soul and mind, but it can give you access to satiate your body, which is a crucial thing. I am so sick and tired of this narrative around money and the stigma around it and blaming people who want money. Those people's goal is not the money in itself, or at least for most of them. For most of them, it is about the worries that money would take away. And if you tell me money doesn't give you the opportunity to solve problems, I would just tell you to get a reality check and read a book, watch the news, or get educated and then get back to me. Money may not be everything, but it damn sure is not anything. It damn sure is not nothing. So when I say I want to graduate and make money, I am not saying that I want to grow up faster than what I am meant to. I am not saying that I want to become rich. I want to have enough money to not have to worry about money. And I don't think that this is such an irrational wish to have. And I don't think that this is something I should be ashamed to admit, because newsflash, money matters. I am very much aware that I will be working until the day I die. And sure, I may not be able to fully grasp this into perspective yet, because it is not something I am currently experiencing. What I'm trying to get at is that now having both to study and work is not sustainable in the long term for me personally. So no, I will not be going through study delays simply to prolong my student years, and I will not be doing a second or a third master's or another bachelor's degree simply because I refuse to face adulthood. Yes, I refuse to face adulthood. Yes, I am terrified to face adulthood, but I cannot live in this play pretend world and act as if everything is fine simply because I am a student. And sure, if eventually I am 50 and I want to go back to studying, I would love to have the opportunity to do so, and I would love to have the stamina to do so. But the thing is, I should not have to prolong my student years simply because they are socially accepted to be my best years. I'm sorry, but I refuse to let this be true, at least in my case. I am very much aware that I am not the first person to study and work at the same time. I am very much aware that I am more well off than some people. I am well aware that I am privileged in many aspects of my life. I am not stupid. I am just saying that I would like to be able to have days off, and I don't think that this is such an unreasonable ask. I would love to have the opportunity to rest and just, live a little. Because now my days are defined by this constant question of, do I go to my lectures or do I go to work to make money to be able to afford to go to that lecture that I would be skipping? And it is just a vicious cycle. And again, trust me, I recognize that I am privileged. I do not have to worry about whether I would be able to eat tomorrow, and that is an immense blessing that not everyone gets to experience. And I really don't mean to sound out of touch here with what I'm trying to say, but what I'm trying to say is that I am tired. And what is the point of prolonging my student years and not enjoying my youth the way I want to enjoy it? Because if I prolong those years, like my student years, and I'm 30 or 40 and I'm still studying, what is the point if I am not living according to the quality of life I want to earn for myself? What is the point of me being a student for longer and feeling miserable and having to worry about such bare necessities compared to, for example, already beginning to work and having a little bit more money to, cover expenses and not have to hopefully worry if I'll be making enough to pay my rent and hopefully, be able to afford a better place and whatever, literally the most simplistic human dreams. So I would rather do the latter. I'm sorry. I know that this probably makes me sound like such a bitch and such a materialistic, capitalistic, I don't even know what to call it, like devotee. But it is just the fact that I don't see the point of prolonging something simply because society tells you it is supposed to be your best years if you are not feeling comfortable in that environment or in that situation of your life. Because I would like to believe that these are not my best years of my life. Sure, I would love to think that they're the best years of my life yet. I cannot confidently see this as of now, but I would love to believe that in the future I will be having more fun and more stability and more love and more happiness and more joy and just a better time. Because I don't see the point of putting so much pressure on your 20s, especially your early 20s, and saying that people have no responsibilities and saying that it is their best time yet and they should enjoy it because everything goes downhill from there. If everything indeed when it was to go downhill from there on, why do people live to 90? Why don't they just give up? Because there is still a purpose and there is still a point beyond your 20s. And I refuse to let someone dictate the narrative of my life and tell me that my purpose is to live my 20s and that my life past my 20s is not as meaningful. I'm sorry, but this is such an outdated, obsolete point of view that puts a lot of pressure, and it just is not realistic. Because your 20s, they can be amazing, but I would imagine that your 30s are, for example, better. Because in your 20s, currently, I am struggling so much mentally, like you have no clue. Like here, I am only showing you the tip of the iceberg. And I would love to believe that throughout my 20s, I will be working on those problems and I will be earning my own respect and earning my own solutions, trying to tackle those problems. And in the future, having had the experience of my 20s, I would be living with a different mindset. I don't want society to perpetuate the narrative of women in particular ceasing to exist the second they turn 30. I'm sorry, I refuse to let it be. Not to turn into a feminist icon here, but that is just not how I perceive it, and I refuse to let anyone tell me otherwise. I got a little bit off topic. What I'm trying to say is that I am happy that I will get 2 weeks of just half the normal workload, which is a regular person's normal workload. And the rest of the time, I will just get to do something I enjoy. Even if that something entails doing absolutely nothing. So let me tell you what I have been up to since exams ended and what I plan on doing. My plans will probably tie into the planning fallacy that we touched upon last week, but just let a girl dream. Let me live in my delusions. Sometimes, honestly, let's be real, daydreaming about something is far more enjoyable oftentimes than actually doing the thing, And I don't know why that is. Maybe because we dream of something in a very particular way, and when it actually comes true, we see that it is not the way we expected it to be. So we are somewhat disappointed, or it's simply because we as people always need to have something to look forward to and something to strive towards. So daydreaming is fun. Sorry for this rant, guys. I actually this was not my intention. I was very excited to share with you the fun stuff I have been doing recently, but I ended up complaining and sounding so out of touch. And I know that I have talked about all of this before, but it is something that annoys me a lot because it is just such a prominent thing, such a prominent theme in my life right now that I just cannot take it as lightly as, expected. And hopefully over time, I will calm down or learn how to navigate it better, or maybe I will not, and that it should be okay. Or maybe over time, hopefully, I will build a life that I don't need to complain about. And in the process of doing so, I will not be taking for granted my free time and hopefully praying to every single God that exists, my financial stability. I know not everything has to be a lesson, but I am choosing to see this as a lesson because if it is not and it is just a thing that is happening that will not bring anything fruitful to the surface, then I will probably have the worst existential crisis to ever existential crisis. But let's stay optimistic and let's focus on more positive things that I have been experiencing recently. First of all, I know I said I'm trying to cut down on my social media use, and while this is still a work in progress and something I really want to achieve, there is no denying that I am still scrolling. But now I do it without feeling this immense sense of guilt that I am not studying or meeting deadlines, but I am actually making a conscious decision to do it and not using it as a procrastination technique. And now I don't feel as terrible about my social media use. I don't know if you have experienced this, but the routine switch that you experience right after an exam that you have been preparing for a long time is very bamboozling, to say the least. So you have spent an X amount of days preparing for and worrying about this thing, giving it a lot of mental space to occupy, and it consumes such a big portion of your time and thoughts that it has become your new reality, a new routine. And when it eventually passes and you no longer have to lock in and be in the zone because that zone does not exist anymore, it is just weird. And that is what I have been feeling since exams ended literally just a couple of days ago. Actually, I didn't spend as nearly as much time as I normally do preparing for those exams, but still enough to let it become something I would consider on the daily basis. And on Wednesday, when I finished exams officially, I went home and it felt weird that I no longer had to prepare for an exam. It just felt somehow unnatural. And I didn't know what to do with my time because not having to study and not wanting to scroll opened up quite a few hours of my days for me. So the very first thing I did after I finished the exams is I took a nap because my exam was at 8:30 in the morning, which was just terrible. Anyway, so I also made baklava to celebrate. And it is such a problem that I now figured out how to make baklava. And what is more concerning is how easy it is to make. Because that means I would be making it constantly because hello, it is baklava. So apart from enjoying the regular Turkish dessert, I started doing stuff I have been wanting to do for years. And I've been looking forward to this particular period of 2 weeks, not simply because of like the less workload, but because I wanted to really devote a little bit of time to those things that I've been wanting to do for years, but never actually brought myself to do because I am a lazy individual. So basically, I had to keep myself occupied because I simply don't know how to just rest. We have talked about this. We have talked about my internalized capitalism. So we all know this. But basically, I need to constantly be doing something to feel productive because feeling productive makes me feel good and it makes me feel useful. And I know that this is an issue in the long term, but let's focus on the positive it has brought me just now. First of all, I decided to awake my inner Van Gogh and paint. And I have to be honest with you, I hadn't held a paintbrush since I was probably 15 or 16, which is such a long time ago. We had art classes in high school, but they ended when I was in the ninth grade, and we were fully devoted to science and languages from there on because, well, who needs art anyways, right? So I went and I bought some cheap acrylic paint, cheap brushes, and cheap canvas because my goal was simply to paint. I didn't care if the materials are of quality or not. And I wanted to paint 3 sunflowers. And I went on YouTube and I found a tutorial for beginners. And me and my ego were like, I've got this. Like, this is literally so easy. I will paint the best sunflowers this world has ever seen. People will ask me if I have bought this painting from an actual painter. When I tell you that those look as if a right-handed toddler drew them with their left hand, please believe me. It is embarrassing how bad they turned out. But hear me out. So I started following the tutorial, but I was also listening to the Basement Yard. Wait, free plug. Not that they need it, as if the Basement Yard needs my help, as if they need my promotion, but still, let me give it to them. So guys, I finally decided to give the Basement Yard a listen. And when I tell you that I have not laughed like this because of media content in a while, please believe me. Like, I am actually out here spitting left and right because I am trying to hold in my laughter, but I simply cannot. I am out on the street, walking somewhere, and listening and laughing out loud like a complete lunatic. And sometimes it gets so bad I actually have to pretend I am on a call to not have strangers call someone to institutionalize me. But their humor is just so my type of humor. It is just so juvenile. It is such a 13-year-old boyish type of humor. And I'm having so much fun listening to their podcast. And let me tell you, I never listen to podcasts hosted by men. Well, I gave Harry Jowsey's podcast like a chance, but like it didn't hook me the way I expected, even though like I think he is also like very cheeky in his humor, which I appreciate because I just find humor such an attractive trait. And I'm not commenting like if I find any of those men attractive. That is literally not the point. I don't want you to think anything of this. It is just like humor is such an important part of me. And when it comes to podcasting, I listen to podcasts that make me laugh. I don't listen to educational podcasts because, I don't know. I just want some entertainment. And let me tell you, oh my God. So here's the thing. Men should not be sold podcast equipment to. But these two men are the only exception. The Basement Yard, they were showing up on my For You page for quite some time. And every time I have enjoyed what I have seen. And what I can say now is that 2025 will be the year of the Basement Yard for me. Every year, I find a new podcast to binge listen to, and I listen to everything chronologically because, I don't know, just random, like, cherry picking episodes doesn't feel right to me because if they make a reference to something or an inside joke, I would not be able to catch it. That being said, I have not started from episode 1 with the Basement Yard. I literally just looked up on Reddit. I feel it was like, so yeah, most likely Reddit, like what episode to start with to like get hooked. And like someone was like, this is my favorite episode, blah, 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 blah. So I just started with like a random episode. It was rather recent and I am hooked. So I have listened to only a couple of the Basement Yard episodes and they are on episode number well over 400. And I was thinking about how this is literally 8 years. And give me a year, I will be able to binge listen to everything, because I listen to podcasts a lot when I'm walking. I love going on a walk long. Uh on a what? On a long walk, and just listening to a podcast. It just makes me feel like I'm having a conversation, because I am lonely and I need someone to talk. Anyways, so I was just thinking about how that's 8 years, and that is such a long podcasting journey. And I just find this so cool and inspiring. So 2025 will be the year of the Basement Yard. Last year, I religiously listened to Giggly Squad. In 2023, it was the Cancelled Podcast. And in 2022/2021, when I first started listening to podcasts, it was Call Her Daddy. You know what's really ironic? When podcasts first started growing at the rate that they grew at during the pandemic, I was so opposed to listening to any podcast, because the idea of it didn't sound interesting. Like, it sounded so boring, and I just didn't see the appeal. Well, how the turns have tabled, as my idol Michael Scott says. Like, karma is such a silly thing, because I would avoid podcasts as if they were the plague, and here I am. I became the very thing I swore to destroy. Anyways, where was I? Oh, I was in my atelier painting some flowers as if I were blindfolded. So I again overestimated my artistic skills, and I was listening to the Basement Yard, and I was so intrigued by whatever stupid thing they were arguing about that I fully forgot that I was following an actual tutorial. And I started just putting whatever colors I had without giving it much thought. So my sunflowers ended up being one brown, one gray. When they dried, I put yellow on top of them, because I was like, my parents would like to see this, and what am I supposed to show them? Like, they would think that their child is in need of a mental institution. So my sunflowers don't look great. That is a given. But you know what? I had so much fun painting them, and it was so therapeutic to go back to painting, even though I suck at it, because it is just, I don't know, I just let my imagination flow and be. Also, this is my very first time painting on a canvas, and the very first time I've used acrylic paint, and it just made me feel like, so important, because every important artist uses acrylic paint. It just sounds so serious, don't you think? And I don't know why, but I just felt important. And I hope I can pick up painting, because it is just honestly so much fun. And now that I do not have to do it for a grade to be able to pass a course, and I'm actually doing it for fun because I want to, it is so much more enjoyable. That's the thing I don't like about art class. Not everyone is born to be a painter. And I know I most definitely am not. How are you going to judge me for not being given the skill and talent? It's not like I chose to be talentless. It's not like I chose to make my paintings look as if I shoved the brush up my nostril and painted with my nose. I know I'm not good at painting. It's like, if a stick figure is all I can do, then that's all I can do. And it's not like you showed me any proper techniques to actually learn to paint in a non-disrespectful to art manner. So can we just let art be art and let it be created for the sake of self-expression and creativity rather than a grade? Thank you very much. Art should be taught in schools. There is no denying it. But I think in these classes in particular, it needs to be emphasized that art is for the artist. It is not created to be consumed. It is created because of this primal need to self-express and survive by projecting your soul on a canvas through color. Also, history has taught us what can happen if we reject artists and we judge their art and we say that their paintings are not beautiful. So if you want to protect the peace in the world, even though it is non-existent, don't grade artists. Just tell them wow and move on. So I want to ease into painting. I don't want to, again, like put this pressure on myself to paint the most realistic sunflowers on God's green earth, because I risk potentially creating unnecessarily high standards and growing resentful when all I want to do is fall in love with the process. So maybe until I am fully hooked, I should just be like, freestyling some dots and lines, whatever. And when am committed, then learn how to properly do stuff. I don't know. After I was done with the sunflowers, I remembered my host family from the UK shipped me a Lego set as a Christmas gift. And it is this extremely beautiful and detailed bouquet of roses. And I promised myself that I am going to build it here and not in Bulgaria, because I wanted to be able to look at it every day. Because I don't buy myself flowers. I am sorry, Miley Cyrus, I disappoint you in this aspect. But honestly, I think I should start doing this because I love flowers so much, and a bouquet is easier to take care of because I am not able to take care of plants. If you think I lack artistic skills, you should see my lack of green thumbs, because I have killed many a cacti in my life. So I have decided to simply give up on gardening. Because, see, the thing is, okay, dead cacti aside, I wanted to build this set to, make myself a vase when I go home and have access to a pottery place, and, hang a plank on my wall and position it there to look at it every day and just let it bring me joy. Because they are just such a stunning bouquet of flowers. And guys, I opened the set and I was very, very excited. I have never had a Lego set in my life, ever. I have had constructor sets, but never Lego set like this particular brand. And you know what? Now I totally see the appeal. I see why Lego are on the level that they are. They're so interesting to build, and I feel like they can be super educational, and it was just so enjoyable to put the parts together. And I have been building 2 roses a day so far, but I need to dial it back because I have only 12 roses to build, and I don't need to do it as fast as possible to be able, I want to savor the moment. And I feel like this being so enjoyable could potentially unlock a very expensive new hobby. But hey, better be addicted to Legos than to drugs, right? Right? Another thing I did is I finished the 2nd season of Squid Game on Netflix. And wait, before I say anything else, I want to point out how good this season was, in the sense that Squid Game was this massive global phenomenon, and there was immense pressure to create a masterpiece on top of a masterpiece. And we all have seen Riverdale. But we all have seen that it is very difficult to continue riding the wave you have created without literally drowning and making everyone want a refund for the time they spent watching whatever it was that you produced. By the way, I was updated of Riverdale. Of a what? Of Riverdale, only from the ridiculous posts that would show up on my feed, and every single time it would get more and more outrageous, to the point that I was thinking that the writers are genuinely making fun of the cast, because what do you mean there was an alternate universe with magic and Betty and Veronica were together? That's weird. I'm a weirdo. Have you ever seen me without this stupid hat on? No, because I am weird. Anyways, I'm not here to talk about Riverdale because I genuinely don't want to do this to you or myself. What I was trying to get at is that This Squid Game 2, like, is, I believe, a perfect sequel. It didn't feel forced, at least in my opinion, and it appeared to flow naturally because they were exploring different storylines than just the ones from season 1. And I know that this is probably weird considering how disturbing and groundbreaking I would say the first season was, but season 2 I found a lot more gory and disturbing. And I don't know why. Maybe it is because it has been some time since I watched the first season, because I have only seen it once when it came out, however many years ago, and I maybe have forgotten about the gory and the horror. I actually had to rewatch a recap of the first season because there were some aspects I had forgotten about. You know, like the betrayal. Come on, guys. Like, and now this pattern somewhat occurring again with the same player number, but us knowing about it. Come on. Like, what are we talking about? I was so hooked and I kept on pressing play next episode. I haven't binged anything in a while because there haven't been that many binge worthy series that I have come across recently, but this one always left the viewer at the perfect cliffhanger to just force them to basically binge. And I didn't notice that this season only had 7 episodes, and I don't know why, I thought they were 10. And you can imagine my frustration when I went to press play next episode, because if you have seen the season, you know what cliffhanger I am talking about, and there was no next episode. So now I am stuck waiting. And I'm very excited for the 3rd season to come out. But I do need to take a break after watching this because it was so extremely disturbing. It could be also because I am extremely terrified of blood. I don't know what it is rooted in, but I am just an absolute no when it comes to seeing blood. I just remember I was in middle school and we had those first aid classes, and the school nurse had come into our class to explain what to do to help someone until a doctor or an ambulance arrives. And she was talking without even showing us anything. Like, it was purely the spoken words, but she was talking in such detail about blood, and I fainted. I fainted in the middle of the class because I just get so freaked out by blood. And I remember them like laying me on a desk and spraying me with water with all 20 kids all around me until I like gained consciousness, whatever. So what an attention seeker, am I right? Like, get a grip of yourself. But no, the thought of blood genuinely makes me gag, and I cannot stand it. Which is extremely interesting because somehow, in a moment when an emergency happens, when someone is hurt, when someone needs help, I somehow manage to, at least most of the time, keep my cool and help them. Which is nice to know that in such situations I can overcome my fear for the greater good. But when I finally get the opportunity to calm down after everything has passed and evaluate what has happened, I just start uncontrollably shaking. And that is why, my friends, I could never be a doctor. No matter how much my friends and teachers were trying to convince me to do a medicine degree instead of a media degree, but I chose to listen to myself. And while I am not out here saving lives, I would like to think that I am not a disappointment and failure. I chose the thing I wanted to choose. Or at least that's what I tell myself to be able to sleep at night. But as for Squid Game, about the disturbing part, what did not help me was the fact that I watched Netflix while having dinner. I always have to play something when eating, and that is just the YouTube child in me. But the thing is, in my head, Netflix is a night or at least an evening activity, and I just love enjoying something while eating. And dinner is my favorite meal of the day, and I try to make it as enjoyable as I can because oftentimes if not all of the time, it is the only warm meal I have in the day, which don't tell my grandparents because the way I grew up, we would have warm lunches as well. But what can I say? When in Dutch Rome, do as Dutch Romans do. Hey, at least I'm not slapping sprinkles on a piece of bread with butter and calling it a meal. Anyways, we are not here to discuss the Dutch eating habits. We are here to hyper analyze mine. So I must watch something every time I eat. And I feel like this is a problem because I'm not focusing so much on my food and enjoying it mindfully, but I am zoomed in on the whatever thing I have put on. And this habit is one that I have been annoyed at myself for quite some time now, and I would love to change it. And so far, the way I have approached this is by taking a very little but noticeable step. And this one I'm doing at work where my eating time is limited. Like my break is timed because I get a 15-minute break. So that is not enough to watch something full length. And if there's one thing I hate, it is splitting episodes to watch in multiple sessions. I love watching an entire episode without pausing because that just ruins the continuation of the action. That is why I'm such a big fan of sitcoms because they're shorter and I can easily squeeze in a 20-minute episode over a 57 recap of an episode to then start with the actual episode. And that is not just my ruined attention span from brain rotting on social media constantly. I just think it makes it more easily digestible and watchable for the regular consumer. Can I speak today? Apparently not. The regular consumer who watches something during the evening before they go to bed, for instance. And it is easier, for whatever reason, to watch 2 episodes, each 20 minutes long, than a single 40-minute one. And I don't know what the science behind this is, but I know it is true. I myself experience it. But what I do at work is I take my break, and when I'm eating, I do not use my phone. I focus on the eating thing and I try to eat mindfully. And I've noticed that this not only raises the levels of mindfulness and gratitude that I experience, but it also makes me feel more satiated faster. Because now I'm not just mindlessly shoving food down my throat without paying attention to what I'm actually eating and how it is making me feel, but I'm taking very conscious bites. And when I notice that this is a problem, is when I realize how fast of an eater I am. I swear to God, put me in one of those eating competitions, I would crush it. I always eat as if someone is chasing me, as if someone is going to steal my food, as if this is the first time I have eaten food in years. I always eat like Katniss in the Hunger Games when she's finally offered food after starving her whole life in District 12. I kid you not. I am not over exaggerating. Every single time I make myself a nice dinner to eat while watching a movie, for example, and just spoil myself because watching a movie is it's more of a commitment than watching a series, even if I end up binging 3 episodes of Squid Games, which ultimately is a Christopher Nolan short movie. So, watching a movie is more of a self-care thing because it is the determination to be sad for at least an hour and a half. Anyway, so every time I put in the effort to make it a pleasant experience, I self-sabotage with my fast eating because I kid you not, there has not been a single time I have not finished my food before the opening credits have ended. Like literally, the jingle for 20th Century Fox has not ended and I'm done. I am already having dessert. I've finished my dessert. And then I'm just sat there for the next hour and a half, not enjoying it the way I intended to. And honestly, cooking is such a scam. It takes so much time to do, and it takes literally a millisecond to finish my plate. Like, how does this make sense? Like, how is this fair? It is not. It doesn't make sense. And also, this is a thing I do in the cinema with popcorn. Every single time I order popcorn, It is long gone. I cannot with myself anymore. Every single time I order popcorn, it is long gone before the ads that are played before the movie end. So that's why when it comes to popcorn in the cinema, I purposefully hide them from myself until the movie starts. And when the movie starts, I allow myself to eat only a single piece of popcorn at a time to be able to savor it, not just eat it. And a way I think I might be able to unlearn this fast eating tendency is by buying chopsticks and eating everything with chopsticks. Well, not soup, obviously, because that would take way too much time. Although it is possible because I have seen a TikTok before of a guy drinking an entire glass of water with chopsticks, taking literally a mini droplet at a time. And that thing, it took hours. And it was on TikTok, so it must be true. Wait, speaking of TikTok, can we just briefly talk about it potentially getting banned in the US, like for real this time? Again, I'm sorry, but I just find this hilarious. I don't mean like the whole freedom of speech thing and whatnot. What I find hilarious is that the government is banning a Chinese app because it doesn't want China stealing users' data. And what did every person that was on TikTok do? They downloaded another version of TikTok. Again, a Chinese app called Rednote, I believe. And who is to gain from all of this? And who do you think is behind all of this? Duolingo. Because now everyone will be taking courses in Mandarin and they will be learning a language. And if I wasn't trying to get myself unaddicted to social media, you better believe I would be downloading this right this very second. But I need to work on my goals and like my detox from all of this. From what I have seen my friends send me, it is literally the same interface as TikTok. And as far as I know, it doesn't have ads, which doesn't make sense to me. Which, if that is the case, trust me, that will change extremely soon if everyone actually converts to this app, because don't worry, they will try to find a way to profit off of you and your time. But if TikTok indeed gets banned in the US, which I will not believe until I see with my own two eyes, because come on, like this has been the narrative for the past couple of years. I think I've seen this film before. And basically, what I'm trying to get at is if they do indeed ban TikTok, I would be extremely interested to see how the app and the content on there change. And also, I would be very interested to see how businesses which advertise on there operate. Because now, is it just the Americans switching to Rednote, or is it everyone else following in their footsteps as well? Is Rednote a trend in Europe yet? Or are we sticking to TikTok? Someone who's aware of this, please let me know. Like, the media researcher in me is dying to know. I honestly, personally, couldn't care less about TikTok being banned in the US until I realized that this is where my Pookie Saint Laurent cowboy is situated. So if they take away my Saint Laurent cowboy from me, I would genuinely be very upset in a I'm really upset way. This is, by the way, a reference to Harry Styles' first carpool karaoke that nobody seems to ever get as a reference. And every time I say, I'm really upset, I just want you to know that this is what I am referencing. Name one thing more embarrassing than referencing a niche chronic online moment and nobody around you getting it, and you're just standing there rethinking every single choice you took in your life that led you to this moment. Nina, help, like, I'm so funny, come on, like, I never fail to make myself laugh, but like, you bet I always fail to make everyone else laugh, but that is fine because I cater to the ones I care about. I am currently pointing at myself, don't worry. But banning one app because you're afraid China will steal your people's data and them immediately switching to a different yet not so different Chinese app, like come on, that's hilarious. If that is peak comedy. I mean, honestly, like, what did the government expect? Like, all TikTok users are avid haters of Instagram Reels, and we all know they're not going back to Facebook. You know what I was informed of recently? That LinkedIn has Reels. Come on, LinkedIn? The place I used to go to stalk people until I realized it informs you who has seen your profile? That place, the holy grail of professionalism, has Reels. But why am I surprised? Like the things people post on LinkedIn, like come on. No, John, I do not need to know what eating half of your sandwich now and the other half in 70 minutes taught you about business to business communication. Honestly, America, focus on this thread. Focus on the linked inners. They're the ones who should be observed more closely because they're on some strong crack sometimes. And like, I'm sorry, but like, that's true. I just know like the media studies have ruined me forever because all I could think of when my American friend has been talking about the ban is how much I would love to do research on the topic and have a discussion about this with my teachers. Man, I miss my old teachers. They were such good knowledge givers and such good conversationalists. And there was no hierarchy. They made me feel equal and welcome to speak up and ask questions. And as we all have noticed, I love speaking. And in my current faculty, I don't feel the same. Sure, was it weird when teachers demanded that I call them by their first names? Yes. But like, it was the faculty of arts, man. Like, we're all just artsy people. We're just chill guys. Guys, I have so much still to tell you about what I have been up to. I literally did not follow through with the plan I had, like planning fallacy. Because I finally went to see We Live in Time after a long wait for this movie to be released. But I'd say we covered a lot of ground today. Yet I feel like I literally said nothing of substance, but that is okay. Because these 2 weeks now are all about just enjoying myself and my time off before I become a barely functioning ball of nerves again. Well, in that case, I want to thank you all for listening to this episode and I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, stay hydrated, wear sunscreen, and don't support genocide. Bye!